Most people think shoes were invented to protect human feet, except that's not the real reason. And what actually happened changes everything you think you know about the moment humans decided to cover their feet, and what it reveals about who we were and who we were becoming. You put on shoes this morning without thinking about it. You probably didn't pause, didn't reflect. You just reached down, slipped them on, and walked out the door. It's one of the most automatic things a human being does. So automatic, in fact, that most of us have never once stopped to ask the question, why? Not just why do we wear shoes, but when did we start? Who was the first human to look down at their bare feet and decide that wasn't good enough? Because here's the thing. For millions of years, humans walked this earth with nothing on their feet. Across volcanic rock, across frozen tundra, across desert sand hot enough to blister skin in seconds. And we survived. We thrived. Our feet were extraordinary instruments, hardened and adapted by hundreds of thousands of years of barefoot living. So what changed? Here's where it gets strange. When scientists went looking for the exact moment humans first started wearing shoes, they ran into a problem. Shoes, especially early ones, don't fossilize. Leather rots, woven plant fibers decompose, animal skins vanish. The earliest footwear left almost no trace in the archaeological record. So for a long time, no one actually knew when it happened. And then researchers found a completely unexpected answer, hidden not in any artifact, but inside the human body itself. To understand what they found, you have to go back. Not hundreds of years, not thousands, but tens of thousands of years. Back to a world that looked almost nothing like ours. A world of ice sheets and open grasslands, of megafauna and migration, of small human groups constantly moving across landscapes that were trying to kill them. These were anatomically modern humans. They looked like us. They thought like us. They had language, tools, fire, art, but they were barefoot. And the world they walked through was brutal. Jagged rock, thorns, parasites living in soil that would burrow through unprotected skin, frostbite, burns. The ground itself was a constant threat. For most of human prehistory, our feet handled it. Barefoot humans developed thicker, tougher skin on the soles of their feet. Not the cracked, uncomfortable kind, but a living, sensitive, protective layer that moves with the foot and still maintains full sensation. Ancient humans essentially grew their own shoes. So the question becomes, if our feet were already so well adapted, what finally pushed someone to invent footwear? The answer isn't what you'd expect. In 2005, a team of researchers at Washington University made a discovery that quietly rewrote the history of human footwear. They were studying a specific set of foot bones, the metatarsals and the smaller toe bones, and comparing ancient specimens across thousands of years of the fossil record. And they noticed something strange. Around 40,000 years ago, human toe bones started getting weaker. Not the leg bones, not the heel, specifically the smaller toes. The ones that, when you're walking barefoot, grip the ground, stabilize the body, provide balance and propulsion. These bones were becoming more gracile, thinner, less robust, as if they were no longer being used as hard. And the most likely explanation? Footwear. When you put something between your foot and the ground, your smaller toes stop doing as much work. Over generations, the bones respond. They shrink. The human body had recorded the invention of shoes in its own skeleton. Anthropologist Eric Trinkos, who led the research, was careful about the conclusion. Skeletal change alone couldn't prove footwear, but when you combine it with everything else, the timing, the archaeological record, the environmental pressures humans were facing, the picture becomes hard to argue with. Around 40,000 years ago, something shifted in how humans were moving through the world. And it gets stranger, because 40,000 years ago is also a remarkable moment in human history for entirely different reasons. This is the period researchers call the Upper Paleolithic Revolution, or sometimes the Great Leap Forward. It's when human culture suddenly explodes. Cave paintings appear, jewelry, musical instruments, long-distance trade networks, ritual burials, a flowering of symbolic thinking that seems to come almost out of nowhere. Shoes didn't just appear because the ground got harder. They appeared at the exact moment humans were becoming, in every measurable sense, more fully human. Think about what that means. The invention of shoes isn't just a story about foot protection. It's a story about cognitive evolution, about planning for the future, about looking at your environment and deciding to modify it rather than simply adapt to it. A barefoot human reacts to the ground. A shod human prepares for it. That's not a small difference. That's a fundamentally different relationship with the world. And it sits right at the heart of what separates humans from every other species that has ever walked this planet. But here's what's fascinating. The skeletal evidence from 40,000 years ago still doesn't tell us what those first shoes actually looked like. For that, we have to jump forward in time. The oldest actual shoe ever found dates to approximately 10,000 years ago. It was discovered in a cave in Armenia in 2010, preserved by the cool, dry conditions and a thick layer of sheep dung that had essentially sealed it in place. It was made from a single piece of cowhide, laced with leather cord, filled with grass, possibly for insulation or fit, and it looked remarkably like a simple moccasin. Researchers who examined it noted how sophisticated it was. The construction suggested a maker who had done this before, a tradition, a knowledge passed down. This wasn't someone inventing shoes for the first time. This was someone who had inherited thousands of years of footwear knowledge.
Then there are the Otzi Iceman's shoes. Otzi was discovered in the Alps in 1991, a naturally mummified human who died approximately 5,300 years ago. His shoes were extraordinary, a complex construction of different materials. Deer hide for the outer sole, bear hide for the upper, a netting of tree bark for the inner lining. A design so well engineered that when modern experts recreated them and wore them across alpine terrain, they performed almost as well as contemporary hiking footwear. 5,000 years ago. Shoes that rival modern design. And it gets stranger still. The further back researchers look, the more evidence keeps appearing. Sandals found in Missouri caves date to 8,000 years ago. Footwear impressions in ancient campsites. Bone needles, the same tools used for sewing leather, appearing in the archaeological record over 60,000 years ago. The bone needle evidence is particularly striking, because if humans were sewing 60,000 years ago, they may have been sewing something. And one of the most obvious things to sew, in a cold world with predators and sharp terrain, is foot coverings. Some researchers now believe the real origin of shoes may push back even further than the toe bone evidence suggests. Not 40,000 years, possibly 60,000, possibly more. Here's why this matters to you personally. Every time you put on shoes, you are participating in a ritual that stretches back at least 40,000 years, possibly much longer. You are doing something your ancestors did, something their ancestors did, something that in some form or another, every human culture on every continent has done. Shoes are one of the most universal human inventions that has ever existed. There is no culture in the recorded history of the world that, when exposed to the need for foot protection, didn't develop some form of it. Sandals in Egypt, moccasins in North America, straw sandals in ancient China, wooden clogs in Europe, grass-woven footwear in South America. The specific form varies. The impulse never does. There is something deep in the human mind, something that has been there for tens of thousands of years, that looks at the raw, exposed body and says, we can do better than this. That impulse built civilization. We tend to think of shoes as ordinary, mundane, a thing you buy, wear out, throw away, replace. But every shoe that has ever existed is a record of human ingenuity in the face of a world that wasn't built for us. Every lace, every sole, every stitch is evidence of a species that refused to simply accept the conditions it was born into. The barefoot human was extraordinary, but the human who looked down at their feet looked at the world around them and decided to build something. That human was the beginning of everything that came after. We didn't just start wearing shoes because the ground was hard. We started wearing shoes because we were becoming the kind of creature that changes things, and we never stopped. The next time you put on your shoes, and you will, probably tomorrow morning without thinking about it, consider this. You are 40,000 years into a habit, at minimum. Somewhere in your deep evolutionary past, one of your ancestors picked up a piece of hide, or a woven mat of grass, or a strip of bark, and placed it between their foot and the earth, and something shifted. Not just in how they walked, but in how they thought, in who they were. You inherited that. It's written in your bones. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden history behind everyday life, subscribe to Luminos. Every video, we take something ordinary, something you've never thought twice about, and reveal the ancient, surprising, deeply human story behind it.